whenever you're in the pursuit of something, like whether it's you want to run a marathon or you want to learn Spanish or you want to, whatever it is, like to be able to like better yourself in some way and have a goal and to always be chasing something, I think that's when you are able to maximize your mental health and your physical health. Because there's a saying, it's not the pursuit of happiness, rather it's the happiness of pursuit, where if you feel like you have a purpose and you're working towards something, whether it's health related or mental health related or whatever it might be, that's when you're going to be at your best, and that's when you're going to enjoy life.
Welcome to Tad Voices. I'm Nick.
And I'm Lawson, and we're friends and former teammates who are here to talk about mental health.
We are by no means experts in this field, nor is this a substitute for professional help, but we can promise open and vulnerable conversations that highlight the strength of some amazing people who have decided to share their story with us.
Talk, share, help. And thanks for listening. We now welcome on the podcast Brian Ward. After attending St. Lawrence University, Brian has played professional hockey for the past 9 years in both North America and Europe. You can find him on Instagram at BTW Brain Body Hacks, where he shares some fantastic content regarding nutrition, exercise, and overall wellness. He also recently released an ebook titled Looking Like an Athlete Again, an ex-athlete's guide to restoring health and a lean physique. We are very excited to have him join us here today. Welcome to Tad Voices, Brian.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be on. I love what you guys have going here, and looking forward to giving my input, and hopefully I can offer some good stuff.
Perfect. Well, jumping off the bat, how have you been doing sort of with the whole, past 6 months, dealing with COVID, but also, obviously, this is supposed to be an off season for you. So what have you been up to?
Yeah, this was kind of crazy times for me. I ended up having to retire from hockey just because our league, it's looking like it's going to get shut down. I played over in Belfast this year, so I've kind of been transitioning into the real world, so to speak, kind of looking for what's next. The other thing is just not having a gym. I mean, being an athlete, I'm always never really did any running or did any other kind of like calisthenics without weights, so I've kind of been adjusting the last couple of months, my workouts and stuff. But yeah, I'm hanging in there. Officially retired a few days ago, made the decision, and focusing on my health stuff. Like you just said, I just released that ebook. I'm excited, kind of just exploring, casting the net out there to see where I head from here.
This is just kind of something I'm a little bit curious about. So obviously I just finished up playing hockey at school, and it was a little bit of a weird time. The end of our season was canceled just with everything going on, but it's definitely been a little bit of a weird transition for me personally, like not you play for the past 20 years or so it's going to be an adjustment for sure. But how have you been dealing with that, or how is that something you kind of, obviously you're pretty busy with what you have going on, but what's that kind of been like, or how was the decision for you to retire?
First of all, it's pretty tough, like mentally going from like having that much structure. So when you're a pro athlete or just college athlete, you gotta like, you have a reason to have to be in shape and have to stay healthy. You're being held accountable by your sport. You want to perform well, and obviously you want to play. So just going from that and realizing like, technically there's no like reason I have to be in shape, and that's kind of where this plays into mental health, because like I found that if I don't do anything for a few days and I kind of get lazy, I kind of like feel down. I don't feel I don't have like that energy, the mental energy. So that's been a bit of an adjustment, and then just it's kind of terrifying when you're 28 and then you realize you don't even have a resume yet, so you got to hop on. So I've been doing a lot of that, like interview prep and stuff, and kind of a little later to the game than someone coming straight out of college, getting into the real world. But yeah, it's been a bit of an adjustment. It's kind of, I try to, I do the health and fitness stuff, so I kind of have to practice what I preach essentially. So I'm trying to be good about working out and eating healthy, which I find is really good for just my mental health and being happy if I know I'm being productive. And because like I haven't usually in the summer I do this manual labor job at a tent company, but now that I'm not going back in the fall, I stopped doing that. So now I got nothing going and I'm just on the job hunt. And you got to find ways to stay sane where you got to have a little bit of direction. And that's kind of been the biggest adjustment, knowing that I'm not going to have a camp to go to in late September. So.
Yeah. And that's a great way for us to sort of transition into, what you've got going on now. And sort of, we'd like to open the floor to you to, sort of tell us a little bit more about what you got going on and hopefully fill us in about your, past experiences, which led you to where you are currently.
Yeah. So, as far as like my personal experience with mental health. So before I went to St. Lawrence, I went to Dartmouth, and this is I'm just trying to relate to other athletes in this sense, because this is like the world I came from and how it relates to mental health. But so I went to Dartmouth. I was at Dartmouth for a year before I transferred to St. Lawrence, and um, I guess like when you're an athlete, you're at an Ivy League school, and you almost don't feel justified if you're like feeling depressed or you're feeling down. Like hockey wasn't going well, so I like really hated it there. Like it just kind of cast a dark cloud over just over my whole experience there. And that's kind of a tough position to be in, because you don't feel justified feeling down or feeling depressed, because you're like, well, I'm at an Ivy League school, I'm playing sport in college, like I should be grateful. And but that's like the thing where you should never feel not justified in like feeling the way you feel, because everyone's fighting their own battle. And that kind of went on for a few months, and it ended up getting so bad that I just said, I know like I'm an idiot or not an idiot, but I know I'm like grasping at straws here, but I was like, I want to play hockey, like pro hockey, and it's not going to happen if I stay here. And then you got everyone in your ear saying, oh, well, you're at an Ivy League, you should just, who cares about hockey? You're going to be set for life if you get a degree from Dartmouth. But I knew that like it didn't feel right to me. I didn't feel right. I wasn't happy. And if I just sucked it up and grinded it out for 4 years there, I would have been miserable the whole time. But that's what I like about TAD. It kind of, it's making it okay. You're spreading the message that it's okay to feel the way you feel, and that everyone, whether it's a millionaire, everyone's fighting their own battle. And to have an outlet like TAD where there's people like me or people like you guys coming out and saying like, hey, look, we're all like, sounds cliche, but like we all go through this. We're all, it happens to everyone. There's a lot of power in that, especially you could look at someone, on like an athlete or someone and say like, oh, they got it made, their life's great. But like in reality, everyone's fighting their own battle. And that was kind of my first experience with it, was at Dartmouth. And then over the years in pro, I was up and down between the AHL and the East Coast League for a few years. And you're getting called up. There's kids that are younger than you that you're better than, that they're draft picks, so they play over you. And it's same within college, where there's politics involved, and like it's kind of hard to manage your emotions sometimes, and that can kind of get the best of you, especially maybe you're not playing well, you're not playing to your potential, and that can wear on you. And we've all experienced it as athletes, but like it helps to talk about it. And I know you had mentioned about like, one of the questions you had asked was like, what was my support system like going through all that? And like I was trying to think back, and it was like I'd have one or two close friends that I would like could open up to about that, but there was really nothing other than that. And I think to have a platform where you can get on and be honest, and there's other people sharing like similar scenarios like that, and just like being receptive to the fact that like someone else's life might look perfect from the outside, but they're fighting their own battle too. And that's why was really intrigued when Jack reached out and was interested in having me on the podcast, because I think that's a super, super powerful platform to have, where and it's new, and to approach it from the, what do you say to a friend, like how do you handle it if your friend's going through that, to yeah, I'm just a big fan of how you guys are going about this.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm really glad you brought that point up earlier, kind of in your answer about how you could look at Division 1 athlete at an Ivy League school. It could be any school really, or you look at a professional athlete. There's examples like Kevin Love, or recently like Dak Prescott, and it's like for those people, if you're kind of introspective and you're thinking about it, like it might be like from somebody else who doesn't know what they're going through. It's like, well, what could you possibly have to be depressed about, right? And you have no idea what that individual is going through internally. So I think that's really where this discussion and normalizing, depression, anxiety, and normalizing mental health challenges. I think that's really important, just for people to understand, like, no matter, how how clean, how presentable you are, day to day going out there. A lot of times behind the scenes, everybody's kind of fighting their own battle. So I'm really glad you brought that point up.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like it's hard to talk about it as a serious issue. Like with me and my friends and my brothers all growing up or whatever, you refer to, like, if you're like in a bad mood, or like you're like, I'm in a dark place, or like, and you kind of joke about it, and that kind of makes it harder to be like, wait a second, like I really am down these days, and like there's something off, and I don't know what to do about it. So that kind of led me down my health and fitness journey with my Instagram and stuff, because I found that when I worked out, or when I do a lot of stuff with like cold water immersion, but that stuff would make me feel so good after. It would be like a release of chemicals in my brain, and it turns out that is actually what's going on. Where if you're working out and you're staying physically healthy, it's directly correlated to your mood and how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis. And that's kind of one of the things I preach, is having like a morning routine. So if you get up and you make your bed, um, that's accomplishing a task. There's a famous commencement speech about it, but I forget the guy's name, but it's an Army colonel, and he just talks about, like, once you accomplish a task, you feel productive. That's like in your mind, that boosts you up a little bit, and then you gather momentum, and maybe you do a little stretching in the morning, or maybe you meditate, or once you get on this like momentum kick of accomplishing things and being productive, that's such a like decluttering of your mind, and it just makes you feel so much better about yourself. And I think that's such a powerful tool when it comes to, like, I remember towards the end at Dartmouth, I was like working out more than ever, because it made me feel good, and I was otherwise just in a bad mood. And that's been a really powerful tool for me. Is just being productive and having discipline, like in my mornings with my workouts. If I'm eating good food, I'm feeling better. Um, so I do try to do posts on mental health, but it's from a different perspective. It's more so how physical health and taking care of your body are like the foundation for being in a good place mentally.
Yeah, and I want to get further into that, but you said something very interesting to me that I just want to hopefully touch on a little bit more. And as you're going through your experience at Dartmouth, right? And you're from the outside, everybody's like, "Oh, Brian Ward, freshman hockey player at Dartmouth, you know, that's got to be a fantastic experience." And then you open up to, the thought yourself of, this really isn't going that well for me. Nobody else can really see it from my perspective. And I know if I bring it up to somebody, they're going to say that I'm crazy. And that I commend you for doing that, because that had to have been an extremely lonely feeling, that like to 99% of people, they're going to tell you that you're wrong, but you're the only one experiencing it. And
Yeah.
you're like, this sucks for me. right? And I think like that, like even people that don't matter 0.001% to you, for them to say like you're crazy in that, like that's why people don't open up.
Yeah, that's a huge factor, I think. And I'm comfortable at like being vulnerable and sharing my feelings, and even that put me in a position where I didn't feel comfortable opening up about it, because I mean, I'd open up about it to my parents, but I lived in a dorm that was like it was like way off campus. It was called the River. It was really far away. I lived with my roommate was from Vietnam, and we spoke like one word a week to each other. So, and there was only one other hockey player that lived in the dorm, so I didn't know anyone on my floor, and um, it was just an experience where I knew I should be happy and grateful, but it was just hard um, to like justify being depressed or like being down on myself. And that's such a hard barrier to break down. And like you guys are doing an awesome job with this platform, but to and I think the only way to do that is to get out like stories like mine, or like where other people are in a similar position where they don't think they're justified to be depressed, and have them tell their story. And that way people are like, okay, so I'm not the only one who's like has a lot to be thankful for, but still has issues and is still feeling down. Um,
Yeah. And all I wanted to say was I commend you for that, because, you know, you take 10 people, 9 stick it out at Dartmouth and have a totally miserable experience, right? And wake up every single day and they're like, and this isn't about Dartmouth at all. This is just about a normal experience. But
yeah,
like for you to look at it and be like, you know what, like I need to make a change for myself. I mean, I don't really know you. I'm proud of you for doing that, because that would have been an extreme. It seems like you went to St. Lawrence and had a much better experience, and you know, found value in your daily life, and you know, met your goals of playing professional hockey. So, you know, hats off to you, because I think exactly what you said, your story is going to hopefully help other people who are going through some, like there are a lot of people that just showed up on college campuses, right?
yeah,
And they're, you know, very green to everything, and they're expecting a perfect experience that they've been dreaming of forever. And if it's not the right one, there are a lot of other options out there, and you can go and find that. And I think for you to go through that and come out the other side, you know, looking at what was best for you, that's awesome.
yeah. And I I like to think of myself. I mean, I've looked into this, I've studied this, I've tried to figure out what works best for me to feel happy and feel like I'm having like a fulfilling and joyful life. But this quarantine has like worn on me too. So um, I can't imagine what a lot of people are going through that don't necessarily have these tools and aren't willing to open up and are scared to have these kind of conversations, because there's a huge mental health crisis right now because of everything that's happened. And I mean, my playing career got shut off a few years before I wanted to, but a lot of people had it a lot worse. Like I had a fallback job that I could come and do and be fine, but it is scary to think about um, what people are going through right now, and people are fighting their nastiest battles that they've ever had to inside their own heads right now. And that's even amplified for students going back right now who are they're not really getting the full college experience. They got a quarantine with a roommate that they might not even know. Like it's kind of crazy. So like I think it's like a especially important time right now to be able to have these conversations and spread awareness of the fact that like these are really hard times, and everybody's experiencing it from a different angle. And to be able to talk about it and to be able to have safe spaces where um, you don't have to feel judged for feeling the way you feel. I think it's a super important thing to have right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, you can kind of see this whether it's, you know, a first year student in college who's not having the best experience, or it's a pandemic, or whatever the case may be. I think a lot of the times it's these like major life events or challenging times in your life, right, where you're going through these transitions, and like you mentioned, some people, they've lost jobs. So it's just trying to, I think, in those times where there's a lot of uncertainty around things and you're in a new setting, a new environment, I think a lot of the times that's really challenging for individuals. But kind of just going back to what you'd said earlier and just opening the floor and creating this discussion, I think that, hopefully by doing that, people don't feel like they have to justify their feelings to others in a way, and you can be completely unapologetic for like however you feel. Like you shouldn't have to justify that to others or be worried about being judged. So I think that's a really good point as well. But just kind of going off that, how would you say, and you kind of touched on it briefly a little bit before, but just talk maybe a little bit about like why exercise is so important for mental health, and maybe how it's really helped you individually.
So like I was saying earlier, just as you it gives you that high where like today, for example, I wanted to do a rest day and I didn't do anything. And I just feel it's like a super noticeable, and there's a lot of science to back this up, but it's a super noticeable like mental boost that you get when you do something difficult. I'm not saying go work out every single day, but if you're feeling down, and like go for a run or do some push-ups, just try it, go for a long walk, be a little bit physically active, and that's it's gonna release chemicals in your brain that literally make you happier. And I discovered this. I always liked working out. I always knew that because my dad was a power lifter in college, so we kind of were brought up on started working out kind of at a young age. Um, and I always knew that it made me feel good. I always knew I felt good after. And then I started looking a bit into like the science and what it says about if there's actually something going on chemically in your brain when you do hard things, difficult tasks, things that make you uncomfortable. I was telling you guys a little bit earlier that I started to run a little bit during quarantine. I've never ran more than a mile in my life because I hate running, and I don't do it. I do it because of how it makes me feel after. I don't do it for any other reason. It's not like the best way to lose fat or the best way to, get your cardio up, but I do it because when I finish, then like there's like this feeling that I have that I just like didn't want to do it, but I did it anyways and I sucked it up. And that's I try to harness that. It's a big part of why I do all this health and fitness stuff, is because it makes me feel it just makes me feel happier. It makes me feel accomplished. So when I'm feeling down, the first thing I'll do is like go do a workout or do something harder, like hop in an ice bath. Ice baths actually do the same thing. But I try to use exercise as a tool to keep my mental health and like my mood at a point where I can have productive days and be happy and be pleasant to everyone around me. And yeah, that's kind of it's kind of all I got on that. But
oh, it's great. And I think, hopefully anybody that's listening to this podcast right now can see the connection between, mental and physical health excuse me. And understanding that, for what we're doing at TAD, we're more looking at the community based, right? And people feeling comfortable with being able to be vulnerable and share feelings. And, I think the exercise science behind it is the ability for somebody to cope daily with their feelings, their anxieties, and find ways to make it through difficult tasks and, feel accomplished throughout a day, right? Like I feel it now. Like I graduated in 2017, didn't work out for, 3 years. And since quarantine, I was like, okay, this is a great time for me to get back into it. And I wake up every morning and I don't want to do it. And then I do it and then I'm like, okay, this is great. Right. And I think, it's quarantine's been difficult for myself, right? Like I went from, my job was basically put on pause. And I had to find other ways to fulfill my time throughout the day to feel value. And I think, exercising for me was great. So I hope everybody can see that, from an individual basis, that if you're feeling like it's a difficult day, or if it's you know, things aren't going your way, that yes, you need to be able to talk to somebody, but a way that you can help yourself is exactly what you're talking about. Go and accomplish something. Go, knock out a task, even if it's going for a mile walk, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, for me to contribute here this is my area of expertise, is like finding ways to be able to tools to like bring your mood up, to be able to control your own depression and elevate your mood naturally. So the way I look at it, I have 3 or 4 things that like I mentioned, exercise is definitely one of them. And then I mentioned getting up in the morning and making your bed and accomplishing a task. I like to, if I have a to-do list, I make a little checklist. I'll even write like make coffee and make my bed on it. And then I'll just check it off just so that it's something that I checked off. And then I feel a little bit more accomplished. And then, so just being productive is another way. This one sounds funny, but taking cold showers will immediately boost your mood. You go and end your shower with 30 seconds of cold water, and I do the ice bath thing in my backyard, but that's kind of next level. But I have a funny story. My dad would never speak a word before he'd get up at 7 a.m. We both get up at 6. He had to work at 7, and he would never speak a word in that 1 hour in the morning because he wasn't a morning guy. And then I was like, his name's Bob. I'm like, Bob, you gotta just take a cold shower. Just try it. First thing in the morning. And he did it. And I like hear like laughter coming out of the bathroom. And he like walks out. And he's like, woo! And it was just kind of funny to see that firsthand. But it does give you a little jolt. Spikes the mood a little bit. And then the last thing, this one's kind of woo-woo a little bit, but there's a lot of science behind it, is meditating. And I started it like 4 years ago. I did that Headspace app, 10 minutes for 10 days. And it's even as simple as like sitting for 2 minutes and just counting your breath. And just focus completely on your breath. So you're kind of decluttering your mind. You're settling down, all like when you're laying in bed at night and you can't fall asleep because your mind's racing. Meditation, like what it does, it helps you control that and be able to just not worry about the future, not worry about the past. It's all about like being in the present moment. And when you're when you're depressed or you're anxious about something, it just means that your mind is wandering and your mind's creating more problems than are actually there. And when you meditate for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, eventually you become really good at controlling your worries. So you're not worrying about the test next Friday. You're not worrying about all these things that really aren't affecting your life or aren't affecting you in the present moment in any way. So that's another really powerful tool. But yeah, that's I do think it's extremely important to have an outlet like this. I mean, I'm just trying to offer my 2 cents so people can, use these tools to help themselves when they're feeling down. And obviously, you guys are providing that platform for people to feel justified in feeling the way they feel. So I think we got to fight this from multiple different angles, and providing that platform, giving people tools. That's the way we're going to be able to knock this thing out and have it not be a problem going forward.
Yeah, and I think what's so important in kind of everything you listed is there's obviously a ton of clinical resources out there that people can use, but everything that you've listed, whether that be you could obviously use them to supplement, whether it be therapy or counseling, but at the same time too, pretty well everything you just listed, like it's relatively low cost, if not completely free, right? And it's something that everybody can do, everybody can practice, just like I said, whether it's supplemental to therapy or counseling, or maybe it's an intermediate step or something like that. I think it's good for people just to have these different ideas. So I'm really happy that you're putting it out there for others to, if they stumble across your page and like, oh, that's awesome. That's something that I could implement, and it's not going to cost me, or something that I could do on a daily basis is going to make me, feel a little bit more accomplished. So I think that's really awesome that you're kind of that you're occupying that space, because I think there's a lot of people out there who can really benefit from ideas like that.
Yeah, a lot of I have a lot of friends that see therapists and they have someone to talk to, and I think that's a phenomenal route to go, even if you don't think you need it, because um, it's just good to have an unbiased, like talking to your friends is one thing, but you can't always say everything that's on your mind, without the fear of being judged. So I think that's an awesome idea, even if you don't think you're, you know, at a bad point. But what I'm offering is just kind of ways. It can be a little intimidating to like decide you need to find help and talk to a professional. That's just how it is. It's a scary thing, and I've debated it before, but then once you take that step, you're kind of admitting that you have a problem, and that can be a really hard thing to do. So what I'm just the stuff I'm giving is kind of like do it yourself fixes, where just the little things you can implement that could make a big difference over the long term, especially if you're gathering momentum and you don't have to do everything I just said, but try one or two of them. Try making a checklist in the morning and doing it. See if you feel a little better about yourself, come lunchtime, if accomplished a bunch of tasks. Um, but yeah, what you said was extremely valuable. And I think that's a huge, huge part of why TAD is so awesome, is because you guys are making it so easy to connect those people that need help with the appropriate professionals.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think again, I keep coming back to this, connection between mental and physical well-being. And, I guess Lawson and I sort of like to wrap up these episodes with some, questions that, tailored towards conversations between friends. And, for us, like, how I'm sure people see your page and ask you, you know, maybe they don't open up completely, but they probably ask you, what should I do for this? Or maybe I'm feeling like this. How would you talk to somebody about their mental or their physical health?
Um, I think the first thing you need to do is to relate to the person and say, I'm not, and try to make it seem like you're not this like perfect, like what an Instagram page depicts. Say, look, I went through this, I've been there before, and um, when you can relate to someone, especially someone who has something going on and they need help, if you can relate to them, then they feel a little more comfortable. And I think it makes them feel less bad about themselves, as if they weren't the only one having that problem. Um, but yeah, I do get a lot of questions, a lot of DMs, and I try to answer all of them. I try to, give them, to the best of my knowledge, what I think they should do. And a lot of times I'll share something I went through that's similar to, what they're going through. It's not always easy, um, especially if someone's really down, and I think that's why it's important to have something like TAD that's going to educate someone on, how to handle that situation with a friend, or even whoever it is, if they reach out to you and they want your help. Um, it's not always easy, especially, I listened to a few of you guys' episodes, and just stories of, friends that were really depressed or were contemplating suicide. And that's like that's a terrible situation to be in as a friend, because it's really hard to handle. And to have a resource like this to be able to teach you to, because I think I'm not sure which one of you it was, but was talking about when you Googled what to say to a friend who's suicidal, and like there was nothing. You didn't really know what to do. Um, I think just educating people on that and trying to relate to them
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's kind of a tough question. I'm
No, I think that no, that's a fantastic answer, and I think you're doing something incredibly similar to Tad, and you're just at the end of the day, it's really just trying to find ways and use your own personal experiences to try and help others, which I think is
yeah,
that's that's fantastic if
yeah,
somebody's willing to do that. But I think we'll end on this one last question that we like to ask everybody who comes on to join us. But looking back at your past experiences, and you've obviously found ways. You've mentioned quite a few that you find helpful in your personal life. But what does mental and physical well-being look like to you?
I just think it's living life in a productive way where when you're doing stuff, you're doing things that make you uncomfortable, you're doing things that are hard, and you're experiencing life. That's when you can kind of reap the benefits of like what this life has to offer. So if you're working out, you're doing hard stuff, you're challenging yourself. Whenever you're in the pursuit of something, like whether it's you want to run a marathon or you want to learn Spanish or you want to whatever it is, like to be able to like better yourself in some way and have a goal and to always be chasing something. I think that's when you are able to maximize your mental health and your physical health because there's a saying, it's not the pursuit of happiness, rather it's the happiness of pursuit, where if you feel like you have a purpose and you're working towards something, whether it's health related or mental health related or whatever it might be, um, that's when you're going to be at your best and that's when you're going to enjoy life.
I think that's a great answer. And, it goes back to, the easiest thing that you said was make a checklist for yourself and, cross out that you made a cup of coffee in the morning, right? And get your day going on the right foot. So I think on behalf of Lawson and I and all of TAD, thank you so much for coming on. We think you're doing great stuff and hope to, continue to follow you and maybe have you on again very soon.
All right, awesome. Thanks. I love what you guys are doing. Thanks for having me on.